Hello everyone, this is Paleo Nerd here with part 2 of my Natural History of Tyrannosauridae. In the first part, we explored the relatively small beginnings of Tyrannosauridae, as they evolved and changed from small and vulnerable carnivores to large and powerful apex predators of North America and Asia. Before I start, if there are any new viewers who haven't seen the first part of this video, click here and watch that first, as that will help you understand this video and give a little context for what Tyrannosauridae is, and the beginning of this amazing group. This video will cover the derived Tyrannosaurs, which fall into the clade Eutyrannosauria. Eutyrannosauria, or true tyrant lizards, is a clade of Tyrannosaurids within Tyrannosauria, which is more derived than the rest of Tyrannosauridae, and it can be divided into two families, Dryptosauridae and Tyrannosauridae, although Tyrannosauridae is the only official group. Eutyrannosaurs are currently known exclusively from the Late Cretaceous, with a temporal range of about 81 to 66 million years ago, all the way to the KPG mass extinction event. This group includes many of the large tyrannosauroids that people are most familiar with, which lie in the family Tyrannosauridae, but first we're going to go over the other group. The first two entries in this video, which I will place in the unofficial family of Dryptosauridae, or tearing lizards, present the perfect opportunity to discuss the geology of North America during the Cretaceous period. Starting in about the early Cretaceous, North America became split in half by the formation of the Western Interior Seaway as the result of rising sea levels. This created two subcontinents, Lauramidia, which is now Western North America, and Appalachia, which is now Eastern North America. While Lauramidia yields a treasure trove of fossils, Appalachia hasn't been as generous in terms of fossil remains, so we don't know as much about the dinosaurs that once lived there. However, based on what we have found, we can tell that life on Appalachia was very different from that on Lauramidia. Although the derived Tyrannosaurids had already evolved and were at the top of the food chain on Lauramidia, they were unable to spread to Appalachia, so more basal tyrannosaurids became the top predators. These tyrannosaurids, commonly called Dryptosaurs, lacked the large heads and bone-crushing jaws of their western relatives. They had much more in common with the Tyrannosaurs, like Dilong, Eutyrannosauris, and Stochosaurus, as many of them kept the long three-fingered hands and slender bodies of their ancestors. While they are usually incomplete and known from fragmentary remains, the discovery of a large Dryptosaur in 1982 helped to shed more light on this group. That Dryptosaur is Appalachiosaurus montgomeryensis, or Montgomery's Appalachia lizard, which refers to Appalachia as well as Montgomery County in Alabama, where it was found in 1982. It was described and classified by Tyrannosaur expert Thomas Carr in 2005, and it is known from the Demopolis Chalk Formation in Alabama, which has been dated to the mid-Campanian, around 77 million years ago. Since it is a marine sediment, this implies that Appalachiosaurus may have lived near coastal areas, although the specimen may have also just washed out to sea. It is only known from a juvenile specimen, which has been estimated at a length of 7 to 8 meters or 23 to 26 feet long, a height of 2 meters or 6.5 feet tall at the shoulder, and a weight of over 600 kilograms or 1,300 pounds. And adults likely grew much larger. Appalachiosaurus is the most completely known theropod from eastern North America and was likely the top predator of its ecosystem. Although herbivorous dinosaurs aren't well known from Appalachia, hadrosaurs are believed to be quite abundant, and thus they were probably Appalachiosaurus's primary food source. It is much more derived than its close relative Dryptosaurus, and was originally reconstructed with long three-fingered forelimbs, but that is no longer considered likely, and all modern reconstructions depict it with short two-fingered arms. Besides its location and status outside Tyrannosauridae, there's not really much unique about Appalachiosaurus based on what we have, and it even appears to have convergently evolved similar features with that of the gracile Albertosaurines which live to the west. The next and last of the Dryptosaurids is the namesake of the group, Dryptosaurus aquilunguis, or eagle-clawed tearing lizard, which refers to the claws on its hands, which were large compared to other tyrannosaurs at the time. It is also known by its original generic name, Laelaps, which means hurricane or storm wind, and refers to a dog in Greek mythology which never failed to hunt. However, it was renamed Dryptosaurus after it was found that the name Laelaps was already being used for a mite. It was initially named and classified by Edward Drinker Cope in 1866, and was renamed by Cope's rival Othniel Charles Marsh in 1877, something Cope didn't appreciate. Dryptosaurus was the first theropod to be classified from the Americas, and it became widely known after its discovery, mainly due to the famous painting by Charles R. Knight of two Dryptosaurus, then called Laelaps, fighting each other in the iconic leaping Laelaps pose. Having been discovered so long ago, Dryptosaurus was one of many genera to become a wastebasket taxon, meaning many unrelated species were classified under the genus Dryptosaurus. Over time, these species have been reassigned to other genera, and as of right now, D. aquilunguis is the only known species of Dryptosaurus. Like Appalachiosaurus, Dryptosaurus is known almost exclusively for marine-based formations, mainly the New Egypt Formation in New Jersey, once again suggesting that it lived near the coast. The New Egypt Formation is typically dated to the late Maastrichtian, about 70 to 76 million years ago, meaning it was among the last of the non-avian dinosaurs. While it is known from fragmentary remains, it is estimated to reach a length of 7 to 8 meters or 23 to 26 feet long, a height of 1.5 to 2 meters or 6.5 feet tall to shoulder, and weigh around 1 to 2 US tons. Once again, it would have been the top predator of its environment, primarily preying on hadrosaurs like, Hadrosaurus. However, what was unique about this creature compared to other Late Cretaceous tyrannosaurids was that it had a smaller skull compared to its contemporaries, meaning it could maintain the long three-fingered arms of its ancestors. These arms were tipped with talon-like claws that could reach up to 8 inches or 20 centimeters long, meaning Dryptosaurus was pretty much the closest thing North America had to a Megaropteran. Like Megaropterans, the claws of Dryptosaurus were probably used along with its jaws to help capture prey, holding it down to prevent a struggle. Unfortunately, that's all we really know about this animal, and we might not get any more remains very soon, considering how Appalachia tends to yield less fossils than Armageddon. Tyrannosauridae, or tyrant lizards, includes the tyrannosaurids that most people know about, like Tyrannosaurus and Albertosaurus. They are known exclusively from Asia and North America, and are always at the top of the food chain, the only exception being in ecosystems with multiple tyrannosaurids. While they all share features like large skulls and small arms, tyrannosaurids can be typically split into two groups: the gracile Albertosaurines and the robust Tyrannosaurines. So to start off this family, I'll go over the gracile Tyrannosaurids first. Albertosaurinae, or Alberto lizards, is a subfamily of Tyrannosauridae which currently includes two genera, Gorgosaurus and Albertosaurus, both of which are exclusive to North America. While possible Gorgosaurus remains have been found in Montana, Albertosaurines are most commonly found in the Canadian province of Alberta, which suggests that Albertosaurines preferred environments further north, possibly to avoid competition with the larger Tyrannosaurines. Albertosaurinae has a range of around 76 to 68 million years ago, from the Campanian to the mid-Maastrichtian of the Late Cretaceous, although some possible members are known from the KPG boundary, suggesting that this group may have lived all the way to the end of the Cretaceous. They can be told apart from their more robust cousins by their lighter build, shorter and flatter skulls, proportionally longer tibiae, and possibly crests above the eyes used for display. The earliest known Albertosaurine is Gorgosaurus libratus, or balanced dreadful lizard, the only known species in the genus Gorgosaurus, which was described by Lawrence Lambe in 1914 based on remains found in Alberta, Canada. This animal lived in Canada and possibly Montana during the mid-Campanian age of the Late Cretaceous, about 77 to 75 million years ago. Adults are estimated to reach a length of 8 to 9 meters or 26 to 30 feet long, a height of 2 to 2.5 meters or 6.5 to 8 feet tall at the shoulder, and a weight of between 2.5 to 3 US tons. Despite the relatively short time frame it is known from, Gorgosaurus is known from dozens of specimens, making it the best represented tyrannosaurid in the entire fossil record. It is known primarily from the lower to middle Dinosaur Park Formation in Alberta, Canada, while possible specimens from Montana are typically found in the upper Two Medicine and Judith River formations. And in both Dinosaur Park and Two Medicine, it was a contemporary of the Tyrannosaurine Daspletosaurus. How these two tyrannosaurs managed to coexist is not entirely known, as neither Gorgosaurus nor Daspletosaurus seemed specialized for any specific prey. One theory proposed that Gorgosaurus preferred hadrosaurs while Daspletosaurus hunted ceratopsians and ankylosaurs, but repeated discoveries of Daspletosaurus with evidence they killed and hunted hadrosaurs has disproved this theory. The prevailing theory at the moment is that since Gorgosaurus is more common in Canada while Daspletosaurus is more common in Montana, the two genera avoided competition by simply avoiding each other. Since Centrosaurine ceratopsians and Lambeosaurine hadrosaurids are also more common up north, it is likely that those were Gorgosaurus' preferred prey. Thus, in Dinosaur Park, Albertosaurus probably hunted ceratopsians like Centrosaurus, Chasmosaurus, Mercuriceratops, and Spinops, as well as hadrosaurs like Corythosaurus, Parasaurolophus, and Gryposaurus. Younger individuals probably hunted smaller, more agile prey, including pachycephalosaurs like Stegosaurus and Foraminocephalae, and ornithomimosaurs like Bradyvades and Struthiomimus. Juveniles may have also competed with dromaeosaurs, as well as the giant troodontid Latinovenatrix. Meanwhile, in Two Medicine and Judith River, Gorgosaurus would have preyed on similar animals like Achalausaurus, Ionosaurus, Praenoceratops, Rubeosaurus, Medusaceratops, Hypacrosaurus, Brachylophosaurus, Maiasaura, Prosaurolophus, as well as smaller animals like Orodromeus for juveniles. Speaking of juveniles, Gorgosaurus is well known for its plethora of specimens of all different ages, allowing paleontologists to understand quite a lot about its ontogeny, that is, how individuals change as they grow. While adults are somewhat heavily built, subadults and juveniles are much more gracile and have proportionally longer legs. This indicates that juvenile Gorgosaurs were likely very fast and agile pursuit predators, And this idea of skinny teenage tyrannosaurs has been repeatedly confirmed through juvenile specimens of Albertosaurines and Tyrannosaurians alike. It is completely possible that juvenile tyrannosaurs were among the fastest non-avian dinosaurs, on par with ornithomimosaurs and Carnotaurus. One final thing about Gorgosaurus is that it has quite a history with misassigned species and possible synonymy with other genera. Only one species is currently accepted as belonging to Gorgosaurus, although that number may change if the Montana specimens prove to be a new species of Gorgosaurus. But historically, several species of Tyrannosaurs have been incorrectly identified as a species of Gorgosaurus, especially Maastrichtian age sites like Hell Creek, Lance, and Nemecht. Another proposed species of Gorgosaurus, G. sternbergi, has been recognized as merely a juvenile of G. libratus, but perhaps the biggest problem with Gorgosaurus taxonomy-wise is its unclear relationship with Albertosaurus. Although the two genera lived about 4 million years apart, it has been repeatedly proposed that Gorgosaurus and Albertosaurus are two species of the same genus. And since Albertosaurus has seniority, some scientists have proposed reclassifying Gorgosaurus as a companion species of Albertosaurus, A. libratus. Kind of unfortunate for Gorgosaurus, since it's a pretty neat name. Nevertheless, this theory is not fully accepted, and as of right now, the main consensus on this seems to lean more towards them being different genera, as many have pointed out that the two animals are no more similar than Daspletosaurus and Tyrannosaurus, and since those two are distinct genera, these guys should be as well. This argument is still kind of up in the air, and it really just depends on who you ask, but for now I will be listing Gorgosaurus as its own genus. Regardless of whether they consider Gorgosaurus its own genus or not, it does seem like paleontologists agree that Gorgosaurus and Albertosaurus seem to be directly related to each other, some even suggesting that Gorgosaurus may be the direct ancestor of Albertosaurus. Speaking of Albertosaurus, the next and last Albertosaurine is one you'll probably remember from my analysis of River of Death. Albertosaurus sarcophagus, or flesh-eating Alberta lizard, is the youngest known Albertosaurine, having lived from 71 to 68 million years ago during the Middle Maastrichtian age of the Late Cretaceous. As the generic name suggests, Albertosaurus is known exclusively from the Canadian province of Alberta, indicating that it probably didn't travel much. Like Gorgosaurus, it is known from quite a lot of specimens, about 30 to be precise, meaning we know a lot about this animal, perhaps even more than Tyrannosaurus. It was first described in 1905 by Henry F. Osborn based on remains found in 1884. In fact, Albertosaurus was actually named in the same paper Osborn used to describe Tyrannosaurus, meaning both genera were described at close to the same time. Albertosaurus was a decently large animal, at a length of 9 to 10 meters or 30 to 33 feet long, a height of about 2.5 meters or 8 feet tall to shoulder, and a weight of 1.5 to 2 US tons. It is known mostly from the Upper Horseshoe Canyon Formation, and may also be present in the St. Mary River Formation. And in both formations, it was the largest predator present. Adults would have preyed on hadrosaurs like Saurolophus, Hippocrasaurus, and Edmontosaurus, as well as ceratopsians like Regaloceratops, Eotriceratops, and Pachyrhinosaurus, while juveniles would have hunted smaller, faster prey like Montanoceratops, Spirotholus, Dromaeosaurus, and Ornithomimus. Albertosaurus is also well known for a bone bed consisting of 26 individuals of different ages and sizes all in the same place, with very few, if any, herbivores. This has led to the idea that Tyrannosaurs may have been social animals, living in large family groups to help capture prey more easily. However, it is essential to always provide alternatives in situations like this, some of which include that the Albertosaurs were simply driven here by a drought or their remains were brought to this place by a flood post-mortem. Still, Tyrannosaurs have been found to be quite smart for non-avian dinosaurs, so pack hunting is not entirely out of the question. Like Gorgosaurus, Albertosaurus has commonly been used to classify other seemingly unrelated tyrannosaurs in Asia and North America alike, many of which are later found to belong to Tarbosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, or in the case of certain Alaskan specimens, Nanuqsaurus. Albertosaurus has also had a second species, A. arctungus, which is now considered a synonym of A. sarcophagus. Albertosaurus disappears from the fossil record about 68 million years ago, meaning it likely went extinct before the KPG mass extinction. The cause of this is not entirely known, however the presence of Tyrannosaurus in Alberta and the fact that T-Rex appeared around the same time Albertosaurus disappeared suggests that competition between the two may have been a factor. Tyrannosaurinae, or tyrant lizards, is a subfamily of Tyrannosauridae that lasted from the early Campanian to the end of the Maastrichtian, about 81 to 66 million years ago, and it includes many of the more popular and familiar sounding tyrannosaurs like Tarbosaurus, Daspletosaurus, and of course Tyrannosaurus. This group is known exclusively from Laramidia, what is now Western North America, as well as Eastern Asia, specifically China and Mongolia. This subfamily can be divided into three distinct tribes: Alioramini, Daspletosaurini, and Tyrannosaurini, although the latter two are unofficial. The most basal tribe of Tyrannosaurinae is Alioramini, or different branches, which was proposed in 2014. These essentially served as the Asian equivalents of the Albertosaurines. However, unlike the Albertosaurines, the Alioraminins existed during the later part of the Maastrichtian, about 70 to 66 million years ago. But like Albertosaurines, Alioraminins tended to coexist with larger, more robust Tyrannosaurines. The main defining trait of this tribe are some very distinctive crests along the snout, which typically number around 5. These structures are believed to be primarily used for display, and while other Tyrannosaurines have similar bumps, the crests of Alioraminins are much more pronounced than their more robust kin. First in this tribe is the type genus Alioramus, or different branch, which consists of 2 species. The type species Alioramus remotus, or removed different branch, and Alioramus altai, or different branch from the Altai Mountains. Both species are around the same size, at a length of about 6 meters or 20 feet long, a height of 1.5 to 2 meters or 5 to 6.5 feet tall to shoulder, and a weight of between 800 to 900 kilograms or close to 1 US ton. The genus was first described by Sergei Kurzanov in 1976, who gave the genus its name because he believed the bony crests on its snout and lower skull, which were thought to be unique for tyrannosaurs at the time, indicated that Alioramus was far removed from other tyrannosaurs. This idea may be proved somewhat true if Alioramini's placement in Tyrannosaurinae is correct, as Alioraminins are very unique compared to other Tyrannosaurines. The discovery of similar bumps on the snouts of other Tyrannosaurians very much supports this inclusion, but back to Alioramus proper. Both species of Alioramus are known from the Maastrichtian age of the Late Cretaceous, about 70 to 66 million years ago, and both are known from Mongolian formations, with A. remotus being known from the beds of Nogan Zav and A. altai known from the Nemegt Formation. In fact, A. altai was originally thought to be remotus, but was given its own species in 2009. Although remotus is the type species, Altai is more well known, both in terms of fossil remains and in its environment. The beds of Nogon Sav are quite short on fossils, as the only other dinosaurs found there besides Alioramus are unnamed, including a Tyrannosaurian that might be Tarbosaurus, an ornithomimid, a hadrosaur, and a therizinosaur. Meanwhile, Altai coexisted with a plethora of fauna, including but not limited to Tarbosaurus, Therizinosaurus, Saurolophus, Deinocheirus, Tarchia, and Nanuqsaurus. It likely preyed on small to mid-sized dinosaurs like Gallimimus, Praenocephaly, Mononychus, and oviraptorids like Conchoraptor and Nemegtomia. While it did coexist with Tarbosaurus, the two tyrannosaurs likely did not compete due to niche partitioning, although younger individuals may have competed with dromaeosaurs like Albertosaurus, as well as an unnamed Azhdarchid pterosaur dubbed the Mongol Giant. Although the areas where Alioramus fossils have been found are quite dry today, paleontologists believe that Mongolia was very wet, humid, and swamp-like during the Late Cretaceous, similar to the Hell Creek Formation in North America. One last thing about Alioramus before we move on is that some paleontologists have actually suggested that Alioramus represents a juvenile Tarbosaurus, similar to the snafu surrounding Dynamoterror and Tyrannosaurus. However, this really isn't taken very seriously, as differences like the more prominent crests and higher tooth count seem to suggest that it is indeed a different genus. Having been described by Liu et al. In May of 2014, Qianzhousaurus sinensis, or Chinese Qianzhou lizard, is perhaps more well known by the nickname it has been given by the media, Pinocchio Rex, which refers to its elongated snout compared to other tyrannosaurians. Like Alioramus, Qianzhousaurus lived during the Maastrichtian age of the Late Cretaceous, about 70 to 66 million years ago, and as its species name suggests, it was found in China, specifically the red beds of the Nanjiang Formation in the Guangdong province of southern China. It is also the only known Alioraminin from which fully grown adult remains are known, as all Alioramus fossils belong to juvenile or subadult individuals, but that is not the only way in which it is significant. The discovery of Qianzhousaurus also allowed for the recognition of the tribe Alioramini as its own taxonomic group, and opens up the possibility of other Alioraminins that have yet to be discovered throughout Asia. This possibility has been threatened by the theory that Qianzhousaurus is actually a Chinese species of Alioramus, dubbed Alioramus sinensis, but for now I will include it as a distinct genus. Qianzhousaurus is the largest member of Alioramini, at an estimated length of 9 meters or 30 feet long, a height of 2 to 2.5 meters or 6.5 to 8 feet tall to shoulder, and a weight of around 1,000 kilograms or over 1 US ton. It coexisted with a multitude of oviraptorids, including Banji, Corythoraptor, Qianzhousaurus, Huanansaurus, Jiangxisaurus, Nankengia, and Tongqianglong. It also coexisted with the Titanosaur Ganonsaurus, the now dubious Hadrosaur Microhadrosaurus, the Therizinosaur Nanuqsaurus, as well as crocodilians, turtles, and lizards. The lack of Tarbosaurus or any other robust tyrannosaurian in the formation may suggest that Qianzhousaurus lived at the top of the food chain. However, Tarbosaurus did live at the same time, so it is not completely impossible that the two did meet. Even with the presence of Tarbosaurus, Qianzhousaurus would have probably faced little to no competition, once again due to niche partitioning. Given its gracile body structure and thin snout, it is unlikely that Qianzhousaurus hunted prey larger than itself, likely targeting juveniles of larger herbivores as well as smaller dinosaurs like oviraptorids. Nevertheless, Qianzhousaurus provides some unique insight into a relatively poorly known group of tyrannosaurs that once roamed eastern Asia. Daspletosaurini, or frightful lizards, is an unofficial tribe of tyrannosaurians known only from North America, which lasted from the early to late Campanian of the Late Cretaceous, about 81 to 73 million years ago. This tribe appeared to be common in the southern half of the Laramedian subcontinent, although one member, Daspletosaurus, is known from much farther north, in Montana and southern Canada. And while Daspletosaurinans are much more robust than Alioraminins, they were not nearly as robust or large as the Tyrannosaurinans. Additionally, many members of this group were once thought to have been closely related to Tyrannosaurus, possibly being direct ancestors, but recent phylogenetic analyses have since derailed that idea. First in this tribe is Lythronax argestes, or Gore King of the Southwest Wind, which was described by Lowen et al. In 2013 based on remains discovered in 2009. Its generic name was used due to its likeness to Tyrannosaurus, and its specific name was named for the southwest wind in Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey, in reference to southwest Utah where Lythronax was found. Despite being the earliest known tyrannosaurine, Lythronax was quite a large animal, at an estimated length of 7 to 8 meters or 23 to 26 feet long, a height of around 2 meters or 6.5 feet tall to shoulder, and a weight of 2.5 US tons. It is known from the Wawiyip Formation in southern Utah, which dates to the early Campanian age of the Late Cretaceous, about 81 to 79 million years ago. 4 herbivorous dinosaurs are currently known to coexist with Lythronax, and likely served as its prey. There are 2 hadrosaurs, Autololophus and Acrustavis, and 2 centrosaurine ceratopsians, Diabloceratops and Machairoceratops. There are also fossils of fish, mainly bowfins, rays, and lungfish, as well as 15 distinct genera of mammals. Trace fossils like tracks also suggest the presence of crocodilomorphs and ornithischians. One unique trace fossil of mammal dens with digging grooves also suggests the presence of at least one Maniraptoran theropod, likely a dromaeosaur, which would have preyed on these mammals. But back to Lythronax. Although occasionally called the ancestor of Tyrannosaurus, evidence suggests that Lythronax, along with other Daspletosaurians, diverged from the evolution of Tyrannosaurs from northern states sometime before Lythronax evolved. Despite this, Lythronax is very much like Tyrannosaurus in many ways, so the reasoning behind the earlier claim is understandable. Like Tyrannosaurus, Lythronax has a very robust skull with forward-facing eyes, and teeth that seem to be able to crush bone as well as tear flesh, making it a formidable predator. Next up is a very recently described Tyrannosaurine, as recent as last year, 2018. Meet Dynamoterror dynasties, or powerful terror ruler, which was described by McDonald et al. In October of 2018, based on remains found in August of 2012. It is known from somewhat fragmentary remains, including partial frontal bones, vertebrae, ribs, an ilium, and partial arm and foot bones. But based on these remains, the animal has been estimated to reach a length of 9 meters or 30 feet long, a height of 2.5 meters or 8 feet tall to shoulder, and a weight of 3 US tons. Alongside Lythronax, it is among the earliest of the Tyrannosaurines, and was likely part of the same lineage of southern tyrannosaurs. It is currently known from the Menifee Formation in northeastern New Mexico, specifically the Allison member, which dates to the early Campanian, about 78 million years ago. Only 2 other animals have been named from this formation, the Notosaurid invictarx and the species of Brachychampsa, but remains of turtles, hadrosaurs, dromaeosaurs, and a centrosaurine ceratopsian have also been found in the formation but have yet to be described. That's really all we know about this animal, and it's a neat new tyrannosaur, although I feel the name is a bit much. Although supposedly it is meant to be a homage to Dynamoterror, which was an old name for Tyrannosaurus, so guess it kinda makes sense. Up next is Daspletosaurus, currently one of the two known Tyrannosaurians to have more than one species, the other being Alioramus, with 2 or maybe 3 distinct species. The genus translates to frightful lizard, and its 2/3 species are the type species Daspletosaurus turosus, brawny frightful lizard, Daspletosaurus horneri, or Horner's frightful lizard, and an unnamed Daspletosaurus species, which may or may not be the same as D. turosus. Turosus was described back in 1970 by Dale Russell after almost 50 years of being classified as a species of Gorgosaurus. Meanwhile, D. horneri was described in 2017 by Thomas Carr et al. And honors Jack Horner, who had published a paper about the animal in 1992, suggesting that it was a transitional species between Daspletosaurus and Tyrannosaurus, which really isn't well accepted these days. All 3 species of Daspletosaurus are known from the Campanian, about 77 to 74 million years ago, and D. turosus and the unnamed species are known from Alberta, Canada, specifically the Oldman and Dinosaur Park formations respectively, while horneri is known from the Two Medicine Formation in Montana. All species of Daspletosaurus are around the same size, at an estimated length of 9 meters or 30 feet long, a height of 2.5 to 3 meters or 8 to 10 feet tall at the shoulder, and weighing between 2 to 4 US tons. In the Oldman Formation, fauna is divided into upper and lower parts of the formation, in which Daspletosaurus turosus resides in both. In the earlier lower section, Daspletosaurus preyed on ceratopsians like Albertoceratops and Wendiceratops. The upper section is much more complete, and in this part, Daspletosaurus would have preyed on ceratopsians like Hasmosaurus and Tyrannosaurus, as well as hadrosaurs like Brachylophosaurus, Corythosaurus, and Parasaurolophus. It also coexisted with the Thessalosaurid Albertodromeus and the Ankylosaurus Scolosaurus. Other Oldman theropods consist of dromaeosaurs like Hesperonychus and Sauronitholestes, as well as the troodontid Latinovenatrix. In Dinosaur Park and Two Medicine, Daspletosaurus coexisted with many of the same animals as Gorgosaurus earlier in this video, so I won't repeat all the animals I mentioned earlier. Specimens of Tyrannosaurs which may belong to Daspletosaurus have also been found in formations like Horseshoe Canyon and Judith River, but whether these represent Daspletosaurus or another genus is up for debate. Daspletosaurus' coexistence with Gorgosaurus has puzzled many paleontologists, but most believe that a combination of niche differentiation, differences in latitude, and the fact that Daspletosaurus isn't as common as Gorgosaurus may explain how the two genera were able to coexist peacefully for the most part. Despite its relative rarity, much is known about Daspletosaurus' social behavior, diet, and life history. The skull of a juvenile Daspletosaurus has bite marks on it, which suggests that Tyrannosaurs commonly fought amongst each other through face biting. Several individuals of differing ages have been discovered, and some specimens have even been found with infections in the jaws similar to those caused by Trichomonas gallinae, a parasite which commonly afflicts modern birds. There's a lot more to this animal, but we have to keep moving, or else this video could go on forever. Next we have Teratophoneus currii, or Currie's monstrous murderer, one of the first Tyrannosaurians to be described from the southern part of North America. Its specific name honors Philip J. Currie, a somewhat famous paleontologist and museum curator, and it was described by Thomas Carr et al. In 2011. The holotype consists of a fragmentary skull and some postcranial remains, but in 2017 some new fossils were also found and reside in the Natural History Museum of Utah. All known Teratophoneus remains are believed to come from subadults, so while adults were likely slightly bigger, most paleontologists place Teratophoneus at a length of 6 meters or 20 feet long, a height of 2 meters or 6.5 feet tall at the shoulder, and weighing between 600 and 700 kilograms or 1,300 to 1,500 pounds, making it one of the smallest known tyrannosaurians. It is known from the Kaiparowitz Formation, which dates from 76 to 74 million years ago, during the late Campanian. This formation is part of the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, which also includes the Wawiep Formation where Lythronax was found, suggesting that Teratophoneus may be a direct descendant of Lythronax or at least share a common ancestor. Thankfully, Kaiparowitz has a lot more named fauna than Wawiep, with almost 10 distinct genera of turtles, alligatoroid crocodilians like Brachychampsa and Deinosuchus, as well as a wide variety of dinosaurs. Teratophoneus would have preyed primarily on hadrosaurs like Dryptosaurus and Parasaurolophus, as well as ceratopsians like Cosmoceratops, Nasutoceratops, and Eutyrannosauria. It also coexisted with the ankylosaur Echinocephalus, as well as other theropods like Hotgriffus, Mirars, Talos, and an ornithominid. Teratophoneus is best distinguished by its relatively short and deep skull, even compared to other tyrannosaurians, which may have given it a stronger bite force to compensate for its smaller size, although the jury is still out on that. Bistahieversor Seelii, or Seeley's Bistahie Destroyer, honors Paul Seeley, who discovered the holotype, and refers to the Bistahieversor wilderness where it was found, with the prefix Bistahie coming from the Navajo word for the area. It was first classified as a species of Oblycodon in 1990, and was reclassified as a southern species of Daspletosaurus by Thomas Carr and Thomas Williamson in a 2000 paper, until Carr and Williamson realized it was a new genus entirely and renamed the animal Bistahieversor in 2010, making it the first genus of southern tyrannosaur to be described. Bistahieversor was also tied with Dynamoterror for the largest of the southern tyrannosaurs, at a length of 8 to 9 meters or 26 to 30 feet long, a height of 2 to 3 meters or 6.5 to 10 feet tall, and weighing between 2.5 to 3 US tons. It is known from the Kirtland Formation in New Mexico, specifically the Hunter, Walsh, and Farmington members, which date to the late Campanian, about 74.5 to 73 million years ago. There it coexisted with, and likely preyed on, the Pachycephalosaurus stegoceras, the Hadrosaur Anasazisaurus, the pterosaur Navahodactylus, and the ceratopsians Titanoceratops and Pentaceratops. It is also possible that some Bistahieversor remains actually came from the Fruitland Formation, which overlies the Kirtland Formation and contains many of the same animals. If this is the case, it could mean that Bistahieversor may have appeared earlier in the fossil record than initially thought, about 75.5 million years ago rather than 74.5 million years ago. The main distinctive features of Bistahieversor include a tooth count of 64 teeth, an extra opening above the eyes which may support an ear sac which would have lightened the head, and a complex joint above and behind the eyes which would have stabilized the skull. The final group in this video, and the last of the confirmed Tyrannosaurids, is what I will call Tyrannosaurini, which currently consists of 4 genera from both North America and Asia. This group is known from the late Campanian to the end of the Maastrichtian of the Late Cretaceous, about 74 to 66 million years ago. Tyrannosaurini can be best distinguished by their stocky builds and large skulls, and with the exception of one, members of this group were among the largest of the Tyrannosaurids, with Tyrannosaurus currently maintaining the record for the largest, or at least the heaviest, terrestrial predator to have ever existed on this planet. Zhuchengtyrannus Magnus, or Great Zhucheng Tyrant, refers to Zhucheng city near where it was found, as well as its size and status as a tyrannosaur. It was described by David Hone et al. In 2011 based on partial skull remains. It is slightly bigger than Tarbosaurus, but smaller than Tyrannosaurus, at an estimated length of 11 meters or 36 feet long, a height of 3 to 4 meters or 10 to 13 feet tall at the shoulder, and weighing up to 6 US tons. It is known from the Xinjiang Formation in eastern China, which is believed to date to either the late Campanian or the early Maastrichtian age of the late Cretaceous, sometime between 74 to 68 million years ago. It coexisted with the ceratopsian Sinoceratops, Zhuchengceratops, and Ischioceratops, the hadrosaur Qianzhousaurus, the Titanosaurus Zhucheng Titan, and the Oviraptorosaur Anomalipes. Zhuchengtyrannus would have been the apex predator of its environment, preying primarily on the larger herbivores. It has been brought up that Zhuchengtyrannus may be the same animal as that to which several isolated teeth found in the same area belong. These teeth were classified as Tyrannosaurus zhuchengensis and are characterized by serrations which extend to the bottom of the tooth's crown, a feature unique among Tyrannosaurines. However, no confirmed Zhuchengtyrannus teeth are well preserved enough to adequately prove the two are synonymous, but I feel the chances are very high that Tyrannosaurus zhuchengensis will prove to be the same animal as Zhuchengtyrannus, in which case the latter would take priority as there's plenty of evidence to support it as a distinct genus. Next up, we have an animal that some viewers might remember as my second creature profile. That animal is Nanuqsaurus hoglundi, or Hoagland's polar bear lizard. The generic name is derived from the Inupiaq word for polar bear, Nanuk, while the species name honors Forrest Hoagland for his career in Earth species and philanthropic efforts. The animal is currently known only from the holotype specimen, the partial skull remains of an adult individual, which was discovered in 2006 in the northernmost tip of Alaska. These remains were initially considered to belong to an Arctic species of Gorgosaurus and later a species of Albertosaurus, until in 2014 it was finally described and classified as its own genus by Anthony Fiorillo and Ronald Tchaikovsky. It is the smallest known tyrannosaurine, at a length of 5 to 6 meters or 16 to 20 feet long, a height of around 1.5 to 2 meters or 5 to 6 feet tall at the shoulder, and a weight of 1.5 US tons, about a fifth the mass of Tyrannosaurus. It is known from the Kaikak-Tugoziak quarry of the Prince Creek Formation, which dates to the early Maastrichtian age of the Late Cretaceous period, about 71 to 68 million years ago. It is the largest theropod known from Prince Creek, although it did coexist with a large troodontid of similar length and height. Nanuqsaurus was the more massive of the two. As the apex predator, Nanuqsaurus would have preyed primarily on the large herbivores like Pachyrhinosaurus and the dubious Hadrosaur Ugronoloch. While large may not be the right word, pretty much all of Prince Creek's dinosaurs with the exception of the troodont were smaller than their cousins further south, but they were pretty large for the area. Other contemporaries of Nanuqsaurus include a possible Maastrichtian species of dromaeosaurus, an unnamed ornithomimid, and possibly a therizinosaur based on tracks in nearby locations. Although its distinguishing features are technically some characteristics of the skull, the one thing about Nanuqsaurus which really distinguished it from other tyrannosaurids is its relatively small size, which paleontologists believe is a result of living in a polar environment. Prince Creek is one of many formations throughout the world which show evidence that they experienced very cold weather during the Mesozoic era. Not as cold as today, but still cold enough for it to snow in many places. Alaska was one of those places, and in addition it also had 2 seasons. Summer, when it was sunny all day for several months and life would flourish, followed by winter, in which the sun would set and then not rise for months, causing food to become scarce. Larger tyrannosaurs would probably have been able to survive the summer, but during the winter they would starve, so Nanuqsaurus' ancestors adapted by shrinking in size, allowing them to require less food to survive. The second to last Tyrannosaurine in this video is also the last Tyrannosaurine known from Asia, Tarbosaurus betar, or heroic alarming lizard. The first fossils assigned to the animal, a partial skull and some vertebrae, was discovered during a joint Soviet-Mongolian expedition to the Gobi Desert in 1946. The holotype was later described in 1955 by Soviet paleontologist Evgeny Malyev as a species of Tyrannosaurus, Tyrannosaurus betar, with the species name being a misspelling of the Mongolian word Beatar, which translates to hero. Malyev also classified 3 other species based on 3 different skulls: Tarbosaurus evrimovi, Gorgosaurus lancinator, and Gorgosaurus novijulovi, the latter of which was renamed to Malievosaurus novijulovi. In 1965, A.K. Rostizvinsky wrote a paper in which he discovered that all 4 of Maliev's species belonged to the same genus and species, merely at different growth stages. He also determined that the animal in question was a separate species from Tyrannosaurus, dubbing it Tarbosaurus betar, although Malievosaurus was resurrected as a distinct genus, and in 1994 George Olszewski proposed a new genus name for Tarbosaurus, Genghis Khan, after Genghis Khan. Malievosaurus was reclassified as a juvenile Tarbosaurus in 1999, and in 2001, another small tyrannosaur, Qianzhousaurus hoyanshanensis, was revealed to be a juvenile Tarbosaurus by Phil Curry and Deng Zhiming. Finally, a small tyrannosaur called Dryptosaurus craigssteini has also been suggested to be a juvenile Tarbosaurus as well, but more on that in part 3. Tarbosaurus is the 3rd largest tyrannosaurian, below Tyrannosaurus and Zhuchengtyrannus, at a length of 11 to 12 meters or 36 to 40 feet long, a height of 3 to 4 meters or 10 to 13 feet tall to shoulder, and weighing around 5 US tons. It is known primarily from the Namek Formation in the Gobi Desert in southern Mongolia, as well as the Subashi Formation in western China, both of which are dated to the Maastrichtian of the Late Cretaceous, about 70 to 66 million years ago. Tarbosaurus would have preyed on the large herbivores present in its environment, mainly hadrosaurs like Barsbolgia and Saurolophus, the sauropod Nemegtosaurus, the Ankylosaurus Cychania and Tarchia, as well as the giant ornithomimosaur Dinochirus and the Therizinosaur Therizinosaurus. Although it has occasionally been synonymized with Tyrannosaurus, Tarbosaurus has several differences which many paleontologists believe separate the 2 as distinct genera. Tarbosaurus is much skinnier and more lightly built, with the primary difference being in the skull, as Tarbosaurus has a longer, thinner skull than that of Tyrannosaurus. One common misconception about Tarbosaurus is that it was a contemporary with the famous Velociraptor, which isn't true. While Tarbosaurus is known from Maastrichtian age formations, Velociraptor is known from formations which date to the Campanian, almost 5 million years prior. That's really it for Tarbosaurus. Now for the one you've all been waiting for. Tyrannosaurus rex, the tyrant lizard king. Hands down the single most popular and well-known dinosaur of all time. It is currently the only species in the genus Tyrannosaurus and was described by Henry F. Osborn in 1905 based on a partial skeleton found by Barnum Brown in 1900. However, Tyrannosaurus has actually had at least 2 other names before the one we know it by now. The first remains now assigned to Tyrannosaurus were extremely fragmentary postcranial remains found in Colorado in 1874, which were falsely assigned to Deinodon horridus, which will be discussed in Part 3. Then in 1892, Edward Drinker Cope found vertebra fragments of what he thought was a ceratopsian, which he called Manispondylus gigas, or giant porous vertebra. In 1907, John Bell Hatcher identified Manispondylus as a theropod, and in 1917, Osborn recognized the similarity between Manispondylus and Tyrannosaurus, but didn't synonymize the two, instead considering Manispondylus indeterminate. The other name it has been known by is Dynamosaurus imperiosus, or mighty powerful lizard, which was described by Osborn the same year he described Tyrannosaurus, before he discovered the two were one and the same and synonymized them, with Tyrannosaurus taking priority. Tyrannosaurus is the largest of the Tyrannosaurines of all of Tyrannosauridae and possibly the largest terrestrial predator to ever exist on this planet, at a max length of 13 meters or 43 feet long, a height of 4.5 to 5 meters or 15 to 16 feet tall at the shoulder, and weighing 8 to 9 US tons. While many theropods like Giganotosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, and Spinosaurus surpass Tyrannosaurus in length, none are quite as massive as T-Rex, and as such it currently holds the record of the largest land predator. It is known from many formations throughout the western United States and southern Canada, with it being primarily known from the Hell Creek Formation, which covers the U.S. states of Montana, Wyoming, and north and South Dakota. In life, adults would have preyed on large herbivores like Edmontosaurus, Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, Torosaurus, Alamosaurus, and more, while juveniles and subadults would have hunted smaller, faster prey like Ornithomimus, Pachycephalosaurus, Anzu, and Thescelosaurus. In the century since it was first described, we have found many Tyrannosaurus specimens, including adults like Sue and Stan, as well as juveniles and subadults, although some juvenile specimens like Jane and Bloody Mary have been argued to belong to the potentially dubious genus Nanotyrannus, which is traditionally viewed as a synonym of Tyrannosaurus, representing juveniles in an incredibly gracile growth stage, which is somewhat supported by discoveries of other juvenile tyrannosaurs like Albertosaurus and Gorgosaurus, although some juvenile specimens of Tarbosaurus and even Tyrannosaurus itself seem to contradict this. Anyway, that's a topic for a whole nother video. That concludes the confirmed Tyrannosaurids. Coming up next will be the Scientific Analysis of Raptors versus T-Rex, followed by Part 2 of the Natural History of Dromaeosauridae and Part 3 of Tyrannosauridae, which will go over the possible Tyrannosaurids. I hope you enjoyed today's video and that you learned something new today. That's all for today. Be sure to like and subscribe, and this is PaleoNerd signing out.